Like it just starts to turn into putrid meat eventually.
Everything should just turn into putrid meat eventually.
It should. Yeah. It does if you give it time and don't refrigerate it right.
On a long enough timeline, everything becomes.
Hello, this is the QUACKCAST. Welcome to the QUACKCAST number 416. I'm Ozone Ocean, and with me is Baines. Hi, Baines.
Hello.
Hello, Pitface. Hello, Pit.
Hello, Oz. I forgot which one you were for a second.
Hello, Tans.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, and that is the full gang, the full quota, all of us, the full roster. We're here. So we're going to be talking about cuts.
We didn't cut anybody out.
No, we didn't. Not this time. We're going to be talking about cutting the fat, like cutting things out of your story in order to make it more punchy and faster and leaner, but not cutting too much so that you lobotomize it. So you've got to be careful about cuts. Cuts can be useful, but they could also be disastrous.
Get infected.
Exactly.
Yes.
Lead to the death of your thing. So before we get into that...
The gangrenous death of your...
Terrible. So before we get into stinky death, we'll have to bring up the featured comic, which is My Cute Wish. So take it away, Kwai, with My Cute Wish.
Hello, this is Kwai Degakse, and the feature I've selected for this week is My Cute Wish by Jiggleknot, and it is rated T for teen. When a wish-granting fairy appears in front of two boys, Katsuo and his best friend Will, she asks what they both want. Will refrains to answer, but Katsuo wishes for the most beautiful girlfriend in the world. The next morning, Katsuo wakes up next to a beautiful, blonde, and voluptuous teenage girl. However, his friend Will is nowhere in sight. Oh, hold on. It turns out that Katsuo and the mysterious girl have already met, and they are already best friends. Now Katsuo's friend must try to blend in at school as the brand new and cute female student. My Cute Wish is drawn in a manga art style. It is full color and digitally colored pages. It uses very nice shading techniques and perspective drawn backgrounds. Step into a new body of work and read My Cute Wish by Jiggleknot, rated T.
And that was quite a guxay with My Cute Wish, a comic about anime manga sort of stuff, which is really cool looking artwork. So yeah, have a look at that. Alright, so we have music from Gumwallace. Now Gumwallace liked the bit of banter I included last week about Aconia, and he decided to do a theme for it because of that. So Aconia gets a theme.
Yay!
So
Awesome.
Aconia's theme: double, triple, contrabass, octobass, cello. The big guns are coming to play for you now. Ushering in the footsteps of doom. It's like the Knight's Dance from Romeo and Juliet by Prokofiev, but as if it was written for Ents instead. So yeah, big giant tree people, because it's awesome. Anyway, enjoy the theme to Aconia by Gumwallace. everyone. That was our music from Gumwallis, the theme to Iconia. Thank you, Gumwallis, for that beautiful, beautiful theme. I love it. It's one of my favorites. Right then. Cuts. The first cut is the deepest.
Mhm.
Oh, that's a great song. By who sung that? Wasn't that Cat Stevens? Oh, look at my memory working
that's
so
weird.
well.
Is that Cat Stevens? That's weird because I was thinking of a Cat Stevens song. I think it's Cat Stevens who sings "Can't Keep It In, Can't Keep It In, I Gotta Get It Out."
Oh, yeah.
He wrote lots of songs about this topic.
I think he did that. That song was on Harold and Maude. Oh, well, we're going... We should cut that bit out. Cut it out.
Cut that bit out. Cut that part out.
Speaking of cutting, yeah. So, the idea behind this QUACKCAST is if you've got a big story happening, you can often, cut out your intro and make things smoother and faster and leaner, and because the audience doesn't have to see everything that's going on. Often if you cut out a bit of stuff, the audience will fill in the blanks themselves, and it's a slightly more enjoyable experience for them not to be able to see everything that leads up to something, because by filling in the blanks yourself, it's like you deepen the story, but it forces the audience to engage a bit more by doing that. It can force them to engage because they're sort of making up their own sort of transition between these 2 points. So it's in a lot of ways it's like tweening in animation. So when you do like a tween, in modern animation at least, you do your keyframes, and then the programs will fill in the bit in between. So you don't necessarily have to do like the transition from here to there. The program will just sort of interpolate that, which, saves a bit of work. And mentally, that's what audiences will do for a comic or a movie or whatever. Will interpolate the distance between here and there. So yeah, you can save yourself a bit of time and make your story a bit leaner and also impress the audience. But I was just going to say, so this topic came to me because of the comic Iconia, actually. When I was going to feature it last week, I was reading through it and I went da-da-da-da-da, reading through, oh, wow, this is a great comic. Then I looked and to see how many pages I've gone through. But first I sort of thought, well, some of this doesn't make too much sense. I'm thinking, wow, this comic is like skipping along really fast, and it's like, oh my god, that was a really clever thing they did there. They sort of like dropped this bit, this like you see a character going to do something and them sort of pissing off the bad guy, and in the next couple of pages they're dead, and you didn't actually see them die or anything like that. It's just it's the funeral happening. You think, wow, that's really clever. I didn't see them being killed or whatever, but I saw that was sort of possibly going to happen because the bad guy was like indicating that, but they didn't show it, so they cut that out. And I thought, wow, that's so clever. But this pattern sort of went on and continued, and it started, you'd have the things that would happen that really wouldn't make sense because there wasn't enough lead up to them. And I thought, whoa, that's weird. And I checked the page numbering, and I thought I'd only read 15 pages, but it turned out I was like on page 30. I thought, wow, that's weird. And then I had a closer look and found out, oh, actually, a whole lot of pages of the comic are not in there. They haven't shown up. So I went into the admin section of the website and worked out, oh, they put the wrong dates. The pages were meant to show up in 2018. Instead, they're going to show up in 2019, like September 2019, which is wrong. So I had to redate all their pages for them, and so the comic is actually intact before I could feature it, and then I could read it through properly. And so I had to go back and read through those pages again. They weren't so punchy anymore because they didn't have bits cut out, but other things made sense. So, but that gave me the idea, you can cut out stuff and it really work, but you can cut out other stuff and ruin it. So there's a point to which, you can run into trouble.
Right. That's interesting.
Yeah. like it was it's interesting to see like an actual real world version of the whole thing happening inadvertently.
Yeah, like when you read something wrong or something. I've pardon me, I've had that too, where I'll read a book in a series or something that's later in the series than I realized. And so there's all this background information that's kind of vague, but it's stuff you don't see. And it kind of works. And then when you go back later, and I mean, it's exactly what you're saying. Like, you go back later and like, oh, they actually have books with this stuff.
Yes.
And it's like, then you read it, it's like, oh, okay, that's how it worked. All right, fine. I mean, I kind of enjoyed imagining it a little more.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny when you when you read or look at something wrong and it still works. Or even works better, kind of.
Yeah, you can cut out stuff like that, deliberately cut it out, or it can be like okay, Star Wars, the first Star Wars movie, nothing's cut out of that really that we know of, but you have the intro scroll text or whatever, and it points to some kind of previous story. You never have to see that. It works that you don't ever see them stealing the plans to the Death Star and, you know, all the other episodes. Because that movie is self-contained and it works fantastically. And that's all you ever need. And that goes to...
I hope they never do prequels to that.
I think that it proves itself completely that it doesn't work when you fill in all the blanks. So, yeah, often cutting out stuff can really work perfectly. Just jump ahead.
Yeah, it's editing. You're editing your narrative to include only what is I don't want to just say necessary, but conveys, I'm going to say, to convey what you want. Because, for instance, all right, so you can always tell the latest movie that I've watched because I bring it up in the next QUACKCAST, but I was hanging out with my mom and my sister, and they decided to watch A Star is Born, the older one, and I watched some of it with them. I found it interesting. I don't want to give too much away, although it is the older version, but, you know, the man and the woman, they fall in love, and eventually, as things progress, the guy dies towards the end, and then you see kind of the fruition of the title of the movie, A Star is Born, because she's kind of on her own 2 feet, and she's gonna make it and stuff. But but what I found interesting, granted, I missed a big chunk of the movie, so I've filled in the middle part with my imagination. But what it seemed was that a good part of the movie was building the relationship up to the point where the narrative takes this hinge and the quote unquote star is actually born. And that was a long bit of movie too, that's dedicated to just relationship building and but it's so important because when the shoe falls, or whatever the hell the saying is, I can't think of it. It's important to have all of that space. So although you weren't getting necessarily hardcore structured narrative that whole time, you were getting the conveyance of these two people and what they are, so that it matters when that narrative crux comes into play.
Yeah, you're building it up. That's what you have to do. It's essential. Yeah, character building, relationship building. It's
so easy to fuck up too, though.
Yeah, if you focus too much on plot or whatever, you don't build up enough time for people to care about the characters.
Yeah,
it's so important.
I'd say the counter to that is, now this isn't a movie that I just watched, but it pissed me off so much that it's the first to come to mind, was the second Alien versus Predator movie, Requiem. Uh-huh. And it's so cookie colored that, while it does technically has a plot, the shit that it throws at you, like it tries to get you interested in all these characters and their relationships, but it's so bad in the way that it does it that it's all completely unnecessary and is an annoyance. It's not adding anything to the story. The only thing I like about it is just seeing how much that this guy likes this girl, and then towards the end she gets so killed, like in the worst way, and there's no coming back from it. I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah, man. Like, yeah, I want to see you crumble a little bit because you're unnecessary,
Yeah.
But other than that, it was just there's no, you don't have any interest in the characters. It's the antithesis to that movie that I was talking about before. It's basically giving you these characters and telling you that they like each other. That, once again, that show not tell thing, and expecting you to give a damn just because it's a trope, I guess. But it doesn't work that way. Don't rely on tropes to tell your story and get people invested. It's crappy writing. Don't do it.
Yeah, you actually have to take the time to work it out. You can't just take the shortcuts. Well, the idea of not taking the time, in the vein of that, I watched the Van Helsing movie with Hugh Jackman, and I enjoyed the film in that, I thought the action was great, the costumes, the settings, there was a lot that was great about it, but there was too much action. There was not enough for character development. There was not enough for setting, There just wasn't enough pauses and slow times to really get invested in the world and to build your relationship up with it. It was just from action to action to action, which was exhausting. So
yeah, that's a big problem with a lot of action movies. Like, they feel that if they slow down, they are going to lose their genre member card or something. And that, like, it is anathema to have anything on screen except action in some way. So
yeah, which is bad, because all the good action films are not full on action. Like a bad action film, which is, the later James Bond ones, I would put those in a bad action one, because it's too much balletic action, and it's, from here to there. But a really great action film like Ronin, if you've ever seen that, with what's his name? A lot of great actors. Sean Bean is in it. Al Pacino. Al Pacino?
Mm-hmm.
I think so.
yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
De Niro, but
De Niro, that's it. Not Al Pacino. De Niro's in it. Fantastic actors. That movie has the best car chase of any film I've ever seen. It's just awesome. Fantastic full-on action. It's so long, and it's just non-stop action. But then the film also has huge long scenes of characters just talking. And tension building. So that is an action film done really well because of that contrast between slow and fast.
Yeah.
And
same thing with Die Hard too. Like,
yeah, good
Die Hard is one of the action movies to beat, but if you think about it, that it's not a ton of action in that movie. It doesn't go all through the movie. A lot of it is build up. And when you talk about, character relationships, it doesn't hand you things it expects you to care about. And it doesn't do the other end of the spectrum, which is, beat in like, this person has this past with this person, and like they, this earth shattering, blah, 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 chosen one bullshit. It's what it does. It's like, I love the way that it makes you care about people. Like, yeah, his wife is captured, but you care about her as her own character too. You see the way that she tries to maneuver her way through what's going on. And but the thing that you really, the most poignant kind of relationship in the movie is between John McCain and the cop outside, and their interaction, that how the cop on the, outside is trying to keep contact with him and keep him going. And John McCain, it's so cool, and it's so simple, but it works so well. You want to be like, yeah, man, I want to see these guys come out of it. I want to see them go have a beer when they're done and be friends for the rest of their life.
Yeah, it's a relationship.
I shot a kid.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's the relationship on the screen that's developing, rather than people referring to stuff outside of the story and saying,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
that's why it works.
And they don't actually, they never have to say, man, I really like you. Or, and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Because
Yeah.
you can see it. And most of the movies that are very successful and people, go back to watch them again and again, have this ebb and flow, in a sense, if I said it right, of action and then a slower part where the action is being processed. And I'm going to talk to mention an old movie that probably doesn't age very well, but at the time it was pretty much a hit, and that was Speed with Keanu Reeves and
Oh, yeah.
Sandra Bullock, yeah.
yes, and Sandra Bullock, the first one, because the second one, no. But the first one is actually excellent in the pacing of the film. The film, I mean, acting aside, or realism aside, or whatever, the pacing of the action sandwiched with the slower parts is brilliant, and because you have this premise of this bus that is a time bomb, and it has to keep speeding, because if it slows down beyond a point, it will blow up, and so on, and blah blah blah. And normally this would be a high octane situation throughout, but they managed to get slow moments even on the bus. Like they have these peaks of risk where they try not to slow down when they have things coming up that would force them to even stop. But then they have these long highways where they can just speed and be calmish, in a sense. Like the danger is still there, but it is in a lower level enough for them to be able to interact and not be, in reaction mode basically all the time. And those are necessary because you get to know the people on the bus, not just the leading couple, but a series of characters in the bus, each one with their own backstory. I don't remember all of them. I remember this irritating businessman idiot that is also a bit of a coward, and he wants to get off, and he tries to instigate other people to get off, and they almost blow themselves up, and then he shuts up and stuff. But you get to care more about some characters on the bus and less about others. Like for some, you say good riddance when they get blown off the bus. And that is good writing, because it would be very easy to just have them constantly screaming on the bus until the end of the movie. And you wouldn't actually know anyone on the bus, and it wouldn't matter. But it does, and that's why people are engaged, and they care, and they worry. And you have even, meme-worthy quotes like pop quiz and all these things. So I do think that you absolutely have to include. You can't cut out in favor of action, for example, or in favor of a quick succession of the same kind of scene. You can't cut out the other ones. You have to have them in there somewhere.
Yeah. Well, that really does come home when you think about the modern trend of in DVDs, where they think DVDs are sort of going away now, but the big thing with DVDs was like you put in all the cut scenes, and for editors and directors, they would go, oh yeah, it doesn't really matter if we cut out this bit because we can always include it for the fans. We need special features, so we may as well just include, this bit that has to be cut out here that I would really want to keep in the movie. It's going to be on the special features anyway, so that almost was there as an encouragement to cut things. Well, not as an encouragement, but it's like, it doesn't really matter if we cut this out because it's going to be in the special features anyway.
That's such bullshit. I hate that line of thinking.
Yeah, which is really bad because so many times, I think every time for me when I've seen something that's cut out, almost like 90% of the time when I've seen these bits cut out in the special features, I thought, oh, that would have made so much sense. That would have made it so much better if that was in there. And they said,
you're neutering your art.
Yeah, we felt we had to cut it out because it was like, we wanted to get from here to there. We were taking too long with this bit. But when you watch the movie, you think, oh, that relationship doesn't make sense. Or that plot point, or I don't see what happened to that character, or how they got that gun, or why this lady slapped this guy. It doesn't make any sense. But when you see the special features, oh my God, why did you cut that out, you idiot?
And granted, there have been good reasons to cut things out, but at the same time, I mean, obviously that goes without saying, but when it's for reasons like that it's reflective of an attitude in cinema that I have grown to absolutely recognize more as I see it and detest. And it is having no faith in the intelligence or the integrity of the audience.
Yes.
Or the attention span.
Yeah, in the attention span, yeah, that's an important thing. Well,
the attention span is the biggest offense, I think.
You can contrast that with older movies, which, especially if you go right back to 1940s, 1950s, maybe 1930s, those kind of movies, especially the 1950s, 1940s, they're really slow to develop. There's almost no fast movies, and they can be way too slow. And you can see in them, if they cut out this or cut out that scene, that would be a leaner story, and that would sort of just get to things quicker. So sometimes, there is a point to doing that. There really is. For those older films, I mean, it was the idea was to go through things a bit slower and because that was the style, but they did often just be too slow about it.
Yeah. So there's definitely... Go on, Tanj.
No, you go on.
No, you go. I told you to go on. Don't do this. Just go.
Anyway, I was going to say that both are rather irritating things. Like I remember in Lord of the Rings, I think I think it's the Return of the King, and not the Two Towers. I think it's the Return of the King, where you in the released version you see the destroyed. I forget how the tower where Saruman was named.
Isengard?
But it was Isengard. I don't remember. Yeah. Okay. So the tower is destroyed, and Pippin picks up the crystal ball. Oh my God! I have forgotten my Lord of the Rings vocabulary. The Palantir. Okay. He picks up the Palantir from this moat, and you have no idea what the hell happened for the tower to be destroyed and the Palantir to be in the damn moat. You get to know it only in the special features of the DVD, which is an entire scene of how Saruman dies, which is a big deal because he was the main villain of the previous movie. You have, of course, Sauron, but the one that was the antagonist in the Two Towers movie was Saruman. So they deprive you of seeing the conclusion, let's say, of this villain, which I think is
it's anticlimactic.
It's an offense.
Yeah.
And they don't even have the grace to even have the hobbits tell you about it, even. Like, oh yeah, the Ents came and they just, knocked him out of his tower or something. I mean, something. How did this happen? So that's one thing. And the other is in the movie I saw the day before, which is Tarantino's Hateful Eight, which is the movie, I think, of Tarantino's that I don't like the most. Like, I like all of them. I even like Hateful Eight, but it's like the lowest rank in the ranking of his movies. So he has whole sequences of the characters just repeating what the previous character said over and over and over. Is that the door? That is the door. Is that the door? Yes, you have to fix the door. Fix the door. It needs two planks or whatever, or two nails, over and over and over again. And that's tiring, because I was expecting that this would lead to something, but it actually really doesn't. This repetition or anything, it's not a code. It's not something of significance. It's just there. And that could have been cut off to make for a faster movie. So
right. Sounds like improvisation.
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I think it was done for some kind of style. It was a stylistic choice, I think.
Right.
More than anything else.
This doesn't excuse the movie at all, because what you put out in the end is by your design. But I think the movie ended up suffering from a lot of spite on Tarantino's side. As the story goes anyway, somebody released the script ahead of time, and so he totally axed the movie and redid it and just kind of pooped it out. And so I hear that, because oftentimes this will be the least favorite movie in the Tarantino catalog, even for fans, which I'm one as well. And I agree that it's not the strongest. But at the end, even if it was something put out in spite, it nonetheless suffers from the shortcuts that he took. And you can really, like, after I found that out and thought about the movie afterwards, you could almost see him sneering through the whole thing, just like, "Oh, fuck these guys," But maybe that story's wrong. But I don't know. So it's interesting that the frame of mind that somebody goes into making something with, affected. Yeah. But and maybe in this case, it's the lack of crucial editing and just whatever. It's not really on the topic though, so I'm just going to leave it be. But
I love the idea of releasing a movie out of spite.
I know. It seems like such a Tarantino thing to do, doesn't it?
It does. It really does. If anyone would do that, it'd be him. I believe, I could be wrong about this. I don't know if it's the Hateful Eight for sure, but I'm pretty sure his editor, who edited all of his movies, passed away. And it's the first movie that was not done with that editor. So this could tie right into...
Interesting.
Okay, that makes a lot
I believe I heard that somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because often, not in all of the sequences, there are some sequences that are iconically Tarantino and they're really beautiful and I really like them. But it reads like a first draft. It feels like you are watching the first draft, the first put together film that they made before it goes through the series of edits. So it very much feels like that, like a good first draft, but first draft nonetheless.
Right, so a lot could have been cut out and it wasn't. Interesting.
Actually, a lot should have been cut out in that. I think I would actually put it that way.
Oh, sorry, that's what I meant. Well, speaking of cutting out, the thing that, going back to webcomics, the thing that occurred to me when I was reading Aconia, and I thought those bits had been cut out to make the story leaner, and the they gave those particular parts a bit of a more cinematic feel, which, really was like a film, because that's how they do it in film. You indicate something and then you jump forward and leave the audience to fill in. People never do that in webcomics, pretty much. We always tell, we always sort of show everything as we go on, because in a webcomic, you have the time, you have the space, you don't have editorial oversight, you don't really have like chapter limits or page limits or whatever. You can tell the story in as many pages as you want. You can go War and Peace if you want. You can just go for it. And I don't know, actually cutting bits out to rush through the story and to give it a more cinematic feel, that's how you would do a more commercial project. If you're doing like a published comic, or a published novel or something. Usually a published comic, because there's like the limits of like 30 pages a chapter or something like this. You have to be pretty lean. And they release it in one chapter at a time, not, page by page as a webcomic. So that gives the work a more commercial feel, but it also can make it feel a bit cheap. So I think you really have to be careful about that. If you do your webcomic as you do, and then you think, oh my God, maybe I should publish this, maybe I should do it for print. That's something to keep in mind. You can cut out those developmental pieces and you can rush through it and, make it all lean down to 30 pages, and just keep in mind the fact that you have to have your
version.
Yeah, the abridged. You have to have your character development there. You have to have things sort of following on, but you can cut out a lot of pieces and still have a lean, good story. But when you're actually doing the webcomic itself online, I don't necessarily know that it's a good idea to do that, to cut bits out.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I think comics in general work a little bit differently in the expectations of the audience as well. Like, it's not meant, even comics, they're not meant to be consumed as quickly, quote unquote, as a movie, even though it probably takes far less time to read through a comic than to sit through a movie. But I still think that you are more likely to treat it as a book than you are to do so with a movie, which means that you will forgive pacing that is a little slower burns, more extrapolation on the characters, and so on and so forth, within the actual pages of the webcomic.
Yeah.
It has a lot of elements of novel writing, especially if it is sequential narrative, or it is a graphic novel and it's not like a daily or something like that.
Oh yeah. So people will give it, forgive it, the expansion sort of feel, the decompressed.
Remember some of the criticization that Putrid Meat would get, and it hasn't gotten as much criticization as I thought that it would, which is refreshing. But the main problem that people would seem to have with it is that it didn't get the main story right away. It had all these episodic things, but then I kind of sit back and I go, wait a second though, do you know this is you're reading a webcomic?
Yeah.
You're going to find this more often in this medium than not, this kind of storytelling where you have one, it's an episodic thing, or you have, it centers around one character and maybe there's some vague storyline, but it's always changing around that character. You're always, you finish one story and you jump into another. And so that kind of storytelling is really fitting for our kind of media. Yeah.
This is something you see in a lot of anime series as well. This is like, that's how they tell the story. you introduce your main character, you introduce the setting and the world, and you do that through a bunch of episodic sort of things that happen, little storylines that begin and they finish. Maybe it finishes in an episode, maybe it finishes in 2 episodes or 3. And it takes you a while before you get into the main story. You sort of build it up slowly. And that is not an unusual thing. And it really does work for webcomics because you have the time and the space to do it. But it's not, you don't have to jump into the main thing and just go for it.
And it's nice because, as you were just touching on, it establishes things in the world and about those characters before you get into the main story. You can learn a lot without being bogged down like, all right, now that we're in the main story, if you even do have a main story, my main story just ended up being the longest story. I didn't plan it that way. It just did. But what was I saying? What was I rambling madly about? Damn it. Oh, but yeah, so if you do these things, if you're able to introduce things about the world and the characters in a way that's less restrictive than saying, well, we have to stick to this main plot and we can't veer too much off of it. How much in Putrid Meat would I have lost? I would have lost a lot, I think.
Character development too, and
just the feel of that world wouldn't have been as crisp if we just started off and Bones was chasing after Exes. Who would have given a fuck? But no, you have this whole line. You know where Bones comes from. You see him when he starts his new career. Getting rid of dead bodies for serial killers and mobsters, and then that leads to one thing and another thing, and eventually then. He chases after Exis right after he loses his bid to become the king of Septica. And now you know why it matters. It wouldn't fucking matter before if I didn't do all that shit beforehand. And I like doing it too, to be quite honest. It was fun for me. So I figured if it's fun for me, it's fun for my audience.
And actually that's right, because not only the background in terms of plot, but also how Bones acts and reacts. Is something that you get immersed in, and also how the world reacts to Bones, because starting with Bones chasing after Exes, he could have been like Septica's shiny hero or whatever, for all we knew, or someone that Septica was aware of even in a sense. So it would take away from the layers of the character and how and the dissonance between him and his setting, and not only the dissonance, the congruity, let's say, between him and his setting, and how in reality the one that is the odd one out is Exis. Exis is the one that. In Septica. So definitely, I think that everything in Putrid Meat was necessary.
Thank you.
You're welcome. No, I do really mean it. I did get some criticism for pacing early in Without Moonlight as well, because I had the priests sneaking through into sideways in the center of Athens and, delivering messages and stuff that could have been cut out and have the resistance later say, the priest told me this and that. And I was criticized for this because I wasn't updating regularly like I'm doing now. And they felt that they were missing in story. Like I was updating, and the page was just the priest sneaking around in, yards and side streets. But I still stand by my choice, because the fact that the priest, and this is not a spoiler, it's a hint, but the fact that the priest sneaks around and delivers messages and does things like this is something that you have to have experienced without much consequence for the priest until it becomes relevant and until it becomes something that is important. Like it's one of the things that are in the background, the facts that are in the background of the story.
You want to show it.
Yeah, they will become relevant. Exactly. They will become relevant later, but they have to be lived in a sense.
Yeah,
like
it has
you
to
have
be built up a bit. You don't want to show it when it matters to the story.
Mm-hmm.
You have to show it when it's just background. I was just going to say, you said that all this stuff was necessary to Putrid Meat. And I was just going to say, well, you can tell a big story and have all this extra stuff, and the extra stuff doesn't have to be necessary to, the work, and but it adds to it, and it adds flavor, and it builds it up. So you could cut a lot of stuff out. I'm pretty sure you could cut stuff out of Putrid Meat, and you could cut stuff out of Without Moonlight and other web comics, and have a leaner, smoother, more streamlined story that would work better. So if you were going to do it for film, or if you were going to do it, in some other way, like an animated version or a series or whatever, it could easily lose a lot and still work. But because you're doing it as a webcomic, you don't have to. So you may as well have all the herbs and spices that you can have, and side dishes, and wine and everything like that, and make a feast of it, and make it a better experience because of it. There's no need to cut it out into a little vegan, parsimonious little tapas meal if you don't have to. You don't have to cut it out to its elements. You can, enjoy it.
Glut to your satisfaction.
Exactly. Give them a feast to remember. A 5-course meal. So I think that's the point. Although, I will go back and say, experiment with streamlining by all means. You don't have to, always glut people. Sometimes you can actually make things less clear and more boring by including too much stuff, or including side stuff that is unnecessary. That's not necessarily to your readers, but to you yourself. Maybe you're really bored with how long it's taking to get from here to there. Well, consider cutting it out and streamlining things. So there's a good reason for it. Well, there's a good argument for it. But don't do it as a matter of course. Don't feel you have to do that kind of thing.
I'm sure that there's, I sit here championing, damn it.
Oh God, you've ruined it for all
Never
of us,
mind.
Kit.
Forget it. That having substance is crucial and important, and it is. But that's not to say that you do have to fill your story to the brim with noise. Less can very much be more, as we kind of touched on that earlier, So I guess just kind of feel it out. If it seems enthralling to you, do it, just do it. You'll be happier.
Just do it.
But I'm sure there's a number of things that I ended up not including in Putrid Meat. I just don't remember them because I didn't include them. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, more. I was looking for more side stories. It just wasn't enough. So we need
There are some things that I have cut out from Without Moonlight, and I am considering just drawing them anyway as extras for patrons.
Patreon.
Yeah, that thing. So I'm considering maybe I should, show what they were doing while this and this was happening, or whatever, as extras, I'd say.
The special features.
Yes, exactly.
The special, DVD special features. Well, this has been an enlightening Quackcast. We have to finish just a bit early because we have other commitments on this particular Quackcast, and we have run over a bit late for our recording time. So, yeah, we have to finish early because of that. Thank you for listening to our Quackcast that's cut short for time. Okay. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
You don't have to go. Where are you going?